Vouchers are just about segregation. It's about segregating the have and the have-nots. Spock used to say this thing, right? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. This is the one area where I think it's the opposite. It's the needs of the few are driving the needs of the many.
Produced by Podcast Architects.
Welcome back to another episode of The Path Forward. We're here in Dallas, Texas, TexED Con 2023. I'm your host, Dr. Rick Fernandez. I got a friend of the show, guest, Superintendent Extraordinaire, Dr. Michael Cardona of San Marcos Consolidated Independent School District. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me once again.
The most outspoken superintendent, the most transparent with his words. We're going to dig into the big topic while we're here, and we're upon a possible legislative session, and the big topic is school choice, vouchers. I want your perspective. Give me your take.
Well, okay. Well, first, let's distinguish between school choice and vouchers. There are politicians who are framing this school choice as the civil rights issue of the 21st century, but the general public needs to understand school choice has been around.
It's already, yeah,
it's been around forever. I'm a 31-year servant in public school education, but not a lot of people know that I'm a K-12 product of private education. So I went through the private school system in the 70s and 80s in San Antonio, Texas. So my mother and father exerted their choice in the 70s and 80s. So it's a little bit perturbing when politicians use the term school choice. This isn't about school choice. This is about vouchers. And we can talk more about vouchers and what they are. They're a handout, plain and simple. As someone who went to a very conservative university with maroon and white, I would say that conservatism and vouchers don't equate.
Explain that, though, because if I'm on the other side, right, arguing for it, I'm giving an opportunity for students to choose and to help with that cost of tuition to the private school of their choice or another school of their choice. How is that not choice?
So let's talk about the dollars,
okay.
Right? So let's take my favorite politician who will remain nameless, who has 4 children, I believe, product of A&M. He's a very outspoken proponent of vouchers, but he has 4 kids. So let's just use him as an example. He lives in a school district and he pays property tax. And if the assumption is that that's their money, that money is theirs, that's school choice money, that's property tax money.
Sure.
On the high end, let's say he pays $15,000 a year only for school taxes.
For district tax, yeah.
Yeah, that's not reasonable. That's really not what happens. But let's say that does $15,000, right? And the proposition that we've heard a lot about is $8,000 per kid. He has 4 kids and he wants to put them all in private school. He wants to make that choice. That's $32,000 in voucher money that he's going to get. Now, he paid $15,000 for that year in property tax, and he's getting $32,000 a year for scholarships for his 4 children. Where is the other $17,000 coming from? Because it's not his money. It's not his money. And there's a difference between, a private school and a public good. And the Constitution of the United States of Texas is pretty specific. Article 7 talks about what the state of Texas should be doing. And I'm not opposed to vouchers. Let's just all play by the same rule, right? I've given propositions. Get rid of testing. Get rid of the testing we don't need. We only have to do testing for federal requirements. Mm-hmm. And if that's even an issue, then get rid of the federal requirement. I mean, they contribute, $6 billion a year to the state of Texas, whatever that number is.
Right.
Let's just not take federal money, right? Let the state fund that $6 billion. We already know they're not funding special ed to the tune of $2 billion a year. So they're not already meeting their Christian obligations.
Okay.
Because many of them, that's another argument, right? They're Christian politicians. They say we should not be worrying about giving money to Christian secular schools. Yet, public school systems are indoctrinating kids. But literally as a product of private education, you are indoctrinated into one religion. And so this indoctrination thing is really funny. But there's ways to solve the issue if we make it fair. And I think what bothers superintendents is it's not a fair system. They've already said private schools will not have to take special education children. They already said it's in the bill that they wrote initially
Yes.
that bilingual students would not, if a private school didn't want a kid who didn't speak English, they wouldn't have to take them. How is that, a fair policy? You're going to give a private school $8,000 that's unaccountable. And then the crazy thing is the governor has come out and said he's going to create another department to manage this voucher system. I'm like, wait, we're a conservative state that doesn't believe in big government, but we're going to make it bigger to promote a segregation tool, because vouchers are just about segregation. Now, people get bristle when you say that word segregation, but it's about segregating kids. Now, segregation nowadays isn't about race, but it is about economics.
Yes.
100% about economics. And this is going to benefit those kids whose families already made a choice, right? This is an entitlement to a group of parents, at rich, affluent schools that will get their $8,000 back per kid, as a thank you for the choices that they've made. But this really isn't about helping the education system. It's not about improving the education system. It's not about making the system better for everybody. It's about segregating the have and the have-nots.
What I don't understand, or what I think is, even if you are 100%, you agree with the governor and you agree that that's what's needed, what I'm missing is we love to tout, and I'm very proud Texan, and I am proud that Texas is a draw for business and industry, because I think that's going to provide jobs
100%.
for our communities and our kids. At some point, if you cripple your education system, whether intentionally or unintentionally, those businesses will stop coming here. Those businesses will go elsewhere because there is no workforce. And if your school systems cannot support those businesses that will bring families, and they're not going to come here, you're going to lose the ability to be a haven for innovation and growth, and Tesla and all these other companies that want to be here. I think that they're short-sighted with that piece of it. They'll leave. All of those people that make the decisions, these companies, they'll get out of town and go find somewhere else.
Yeah, you mentioned Tesla. That's an interesting topic, right? Tesla, and maybe I'm wrong, but Elon Musk is a South African, right? He came from a segregated system.
Yes.
He came from the ruling class. So his perspective is very different, right? In South Africa, you have Afrikaner schools where you have, whites that can only be taught by whites. You have blacks who speak Afrikaner who can only be taught by whites, but blacks cannot teach whites, right? So his frame of reference is he's got a lot of power, and he carries a lot of weight in the state of Texas, but he's a big proponent of these pod systems, right? We hear a lot about these pod systems, and you saw it play out during COVID, where these families form small groups of pods, pool their money,
Right.
and then pay for a teacher, which is part of this impetus, right? This get kids out. But again, it's segregation, right? We're pulling kids out of the system. And I'm a big science fiction guy, right? I used to watch Star Trek a lot. And Spock used to say this thing, right? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. This is the one area where I think it's the opposite. It's the needs of the few are driving the needs of the many,
Yeah.
right? We have a great workforce in Texas, and a lot of that is produced by public school systems, right? And if you're going to use the argument that public school systems are failing, well, then you need to look in the mirror as a politician, because you created the accountability system that we reflect. So we are a reflection of their policies, right? CTE, you were a former superintendent, you were a high school principal. There was a time when we moved away from industry-based certifications.
Yes.
George Bush, No Child Left Behind, which left millions of kids behind because everybody was supposed to go to college. And then the business community got pissed off and came in and said, what are you doing to help our workforce?
Yep.
And so then we went back. And so then school systems adapted. And then TA commissioner got upset because school systems adapted. And we all bought into the governor's 20 by 30, 60% of students need to have some kind of industry-based certification, military, or go to college. We bought into that. We believed in that. It's good for kids. And once we met it, Then the TVA commissioner said, that's great, you met it. Now I'm going to change your guidelines for a group of kids after they graduated. And so there's this narrative around school systems failing to push this voucher issue, but it's the system that's created this, right? It's the system that we're following that has created this narrative of now, oh, we need to give parents choice. They got choice. They have choice. Your former you
Had
you
it for a
know
while.
the 15 different PEG, school safety, academic accountability. We all have the different forms of school choice. This really is a not conservative policy. And for most reasonable conservative Texans, I don't understand why they haven't been more vocal in opposition to this. This is about outside people coming in to influence the state of Texas. And we're proud of our state. And I've been tweeting a lot about this. Don't Arizona our Texas.
Yeah.
The voucher policy right now is based on Arizona's policy, and it's a miserable failure right now. They just had two of their higher ups mysteriously resign because $288 million of money in the voucher system disappeared. That's what we're talking about moving to, and we're much larger than Arizona. Like, this is madness. Like, it's madness.
So what's the solution on the pieces we can control? Like, if we're school districts, and obviously other than voting, what are our options? What do we do to make sure that this type of event doesn't happen?
Well, I think besides the voting, which is going to be too late, it's inundating the politicians in each area
Sure.
to exert pressure. And honestly, the business community needs to step in and say, like, this is not good for business. Like, what you're getting ready to do is not good for business. The problem is politicians right now see education as a cost, and they don't see the money as an investment. And we have no problem in the state of Texas. I think the last time I looked, spending $27,000 a year to house an inmate. We don't bat an eye about that. But yet we're talking about funding. Just fund us to the national average.
Yes.
Just fund us to the national average.
But we tout, how much the budget for education has gone up, but we're still at the bottom, almost the bottom.
43rd.
I mean,
We're 43rd in the United States of funding our school system, and our teacher pay is like 46th.
Something about that doesn't hold water. You can't be the most business intensive, want to be on the cutting edge, innovative, and yet your system that's going to provide the jobs and the know-how is at the bottom of resources.
And make no mistake, we're talking about K-12 public ed. The next vouchers for colleges and universities.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Because they've targeted, the UTs and the A&Ms, for their. I mean, when A&M is getting targeted for woke ideologies, there's a problem with that. Like, it's a problem. And, that's next. It's going to be next. Well, we're going to give you $8,000 so you can go to your SMU or wherever. That's it's never enough. And, some of the politicians who are really big proponents of this are not Texan. They're not Texan.
Right.
They don't represent Texas values. And at the end of the day, 20 years from now, we're going to be regretting some of these decisions if they go through.
I want your take on a possible solution to stem the tide. And being on the private side now, I get a whole different perspective of how things work and where the needs are. Should we not lean so heavy into career in tech and business intern, partners, apprenticeship, and not superficial, right? Not, hey, you come to class every once in a while, or you help us cut a ribbon, or even you donate something. Those are things are great, and we're going to hopefully continue to be able to do that. But it has to be a more intimate connection where our businesses are part of guiding the school, part of guiding our curriculum. They have a different type of investment in what we're doing than we do now. Because once there's that, once they not only have the relationship, but can help us guide the workforce and meet the goals, and then they can take that workforce and put it directly to use, then you have, all right, no one's going to want to tamper with, because they've got a stake in the game. They can help us guide what it looks like and how we need to evolve. I heard somebody, I was talking to somebody the other day, said, well, education is always 10 years behind the curve. And say, well, it shouldn't be, and we don't have to be. I mean, can we not use our programming and our business partners to a higher degree? Because I think they would welcome it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think at the end of the day, though, until the state removes accountability as the measures that they have, there's a built-in wall that keeps businesses out. I ask all our business people, come in and write our curriculum. Like, you come in and write. And that involves a lot of local control, right? And that would involve politicians, having to give something up. And somebody's going to lose in that, right? And right now, the testing system would lose billions if we were to move away from that system. I 100% agree with that. I think local communities should determine what their curriculum is to get their people ready to be, I say, college confident, career and military ready, right? That San Marcos community should make that determination with our chamber, with our Greater San Marcos partnership, with our universities. We should be developing that, but that would require somebody else to lose something, and that's the problem. Nobody wants to lose anything. And it's an easy solve. I mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
Get rid of the testing, and or just test us for what's required by federal, and then let us reinvest that money into what you're talking about. And that's bring business in to help us rewrite our curriculum to get kids ready. The one thing the state did do, I don't really talk about TEA a lot, but the one thing they really did do when they moved the testing to 9th, 10th, and one test in the 11th grade is they did give us the ability as a school systems to rewrite their 11th and 12th grade curriculums. We can use the standards, we can incorporate the standards, but I agree, English should be technical writing. It should be bringing businesses in to help us write resumes, help us write letters of reference, help us write college essays, whatever it is, but yet we still teach the same standards with Macbeth or Shakespeare or whatever as juniors and seniors, and the kids suffer for it.
What is it? We don't have the right businesses making the requests. Like, if we had, you mentioned Tesla, if we had Exxon, if we had some of our energy sector, and they said, hey, TEA, this is what we want to do, and we need you all to adjust, or else.
I got one better. All those CEOs of Exxon and Marathon Oil and out in Midland, Odessa, if they just said, hey, Governor, unless you change your policies, you're not getting $5 million from us.
Right.
You need to do what we want to do in the state of Texas. It's going to benefit kids in the state of Texas. The problem is some of those billionaires in oil and gas are the ones pushing vouchers because they own private schools.
Yeah.
So they have figured out the steady income stream is the school system. And you hate to say that, but that's what it is. It's a few brothers in Midland, Odessa who own private schools that exert an enormous amount of pressure on the governor and lieutenant governor to do what they want to do, not for the benefit of kids in Texas. It's for the benefit of the kids that they serve, the businesses that they own.
So we paint a bleak picture here. That's all right. Schools have conquered an unbelievable amount of adversity, right? COVID. We've seen every iteration of test, tax, teen, star. I got to think that we'll figure out a way.
Yeah.
And how do we, whatever the deck reshuffling is for A through F, through whatever the budget becomes, what do we have to keep doing to serve our students best?
We just need to keep iterating and adapting. Many years ago, it was charters, right? That was what was going to save kids in poverty. And charters proliferated in the state of Texas because people were making money off of them. And at the end of the day, charters really didn't do anything differently. They do the same thing with a group of kids like privates whose parents want to be there. But I will say that until education systems as a whole iterate and adapt quicker, you talked about this lag time, it's going to be bleak because we don't change ourselves.
We'll always be at the mercy
Correct.
because we can't evolve quick enough.
Correct.
And we should have the pulse of what industry is doing, and we don't.
Correct.
That is the hardest. And as much as we have, as our teachers, they're the boots on the ground, the champions. And as much as we talk about feedback and how do we appraise and what's fair and what's a great teacher, part of that learning and part of that professional development, whether it be from the university or the district, it's got to be about how we're accelerating our ability to change.
Correct.
And if we can't do that, which is one of the hardest things to being a human, we can't do that, it's going to be very difficult. Universities, same way.
Yeah. What do they say? What's the old saying? Churches and education systems are the slowest to change, right? They are the slowest. And, you hate to admit it. I hate to admit it. We are in a market-based economy right now, a market-based school system. And, our teachers are market-based people now. If they don't build their program, if they don't adapt their program, parents are smart. They will pull their kids out. We saw after COVID that parents made choices that they realized they no longer need our educational system. And yet we had a chance in a crisis to do things differently, and we're trying to come back to the average.
Exactly. Let's go back to normal.
Yes.
That's never coming back.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, it's
Yeah.
never coming back. Last question for you. Aspiring administrator, someone that's coming up through the ranks and going through some things that are unprecedented in education, what's the advice to them? What should they be focusing on? Is it the same thing that most preparation programs or leadership, like what do they need to really be focusing on as they come up the ranks?
I think ultimately if they keep the kid at the forefront of their decision making, right or wrong, they'll be a better leader if they keep the kid at the forefront, if they listen to the kid, if they use student voice. I mean, I've learned a lot from my kids. I mean, my 50 student leadership advisory council kids are helping us solve issues that they're tired of dealing with. They're tired of dealing with vaping.
Yep.
They're tired of dealing with stuff. Like, they're solving the problems quicker than our adults can. They're like, put badge readers in the restroom. We're putting badge readers. Like, this is coming from kids. And so I think as an aspiring leader, listen to the kids. They're quicker in adapting. The majority of kids want their teachers to be successful.
Yes.
They're very protective of their teachers, but they want the nonsense gone, and they just want to be prepared to be able to do what they want to do when they graduate.
Yes.
Not what we want them to do, what they want to do.
Hardest thing that for anybody, but particularly our educators, is to educate kids from a perspective of your own education, your own experience, because we're all products of our own experiences, is to not do that, not think, I learned it this way, I was taught this way, because their experience is going to be so vastly different. It's got to be, what do they need? And if I'm deficient in giving them that, how do I get better?
Correct. Kids they're faster than us.
Yep.
And they get bored quicker than us.
most
Yeah.
I don't know, some superintendents, man.
Some superintendents can stay ahead of the game, but not many. And kids are just smarter. They adapt and iterate a lot faster.
Quick,
So,
very quick. Well, hey, thank you for your time. I appreciate
always
it.
fun.
I knew you were going to give me the real deal. So
I didn't name any names. Just a couple times.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a governor's a governor.
yeah, there's only one of him. So
That's the other thing about leadership, right?
Yeah.
You pushing it, you got to own it.
yeah,
So he doesn't get to back away from this issue.
it's too late now. It's all
That's
in.
right.
He's all in. So thank you. Thank you
All
for
right.
being here, man.
All right, man.
Appreciate
it.
Produced by Podcast Architects.